Whenever I end up talking about manga, whether it being with my homies or just people in the manga community, these three series do always end up getting mentioned or just come to mind. Berserk, Vagabond, Punpun. The infamous three manga which many consider to be the best in the medium. Now, I haven't read Goodnight Punpun just yet, as I hear it's quite the depressing story, so it's not something on high priority as of now. But I have read the other two, with Berserk being my number one manga as of now, but where I'm currently at with Vagabond, it probably can take that number one spot. Therefore, I thought it would be a great idea to talk about the two series and compare them in aspects such as storytelling, thematic expression, art, cast of characters, and other categories. Now, in this video, I managed to get the chance to feature another great manga content creator to discuss this topic with him. You want to introduce yourself?
Yo, how's it going, everybody? Masked Man, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, bro. It's a pleasure, bro. Yo, so this is the Masked Man, right? Or is it the Ashura or Hades? Which one you got, bro?
We'll just say masked for this video.
Alright. So, of course, the first category, we gotta compare the two main characters. Who you got, Masked?
For protagonist with Vagabond or
Berserk.
yeah. I mean, like Musashi's amazing. Don't get me wrong. Love Musashi to death. However, with that being said, I will always go with Guts, and it's going to be a common theme throughout this video. There's a reason why Berserk is my number one, and Vagabond is my number three, number two sometimes depending. It's not like it's set in stone or anything, but it's a debatable thing. You can definitely pick or choose who you got, but I think their characters with similar developments in the sense that they go from these monstrous, seem like killing machine to these older, wiser men. Even though Guts is still relatively young, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Guts, even though I think like you could debate it either ways.
Yeah, before catching up to Vagabond, I definitely had Guts. I really enjoyed his journey, but now I'm really gonna have to go with Musashi. It's just his
Okay.
journey and then his progression in the farming arc was truly. I can't really say this in an off
Yeah.
scripted video, but it was truly something else. Like how you see him
Hmm.
in the first, you see Shinmen Takizo, he doesn't really care for human life, he only cares about himself. Then in the farming arc, what really made him great for me was when he actually asked for help and wanted to help the villagers. It was an amazing character journey and something that
Hmm.
I really liked. For design, I got Guts quite easily. Musashi's isn't bad, not to take away from him, but I just got Guts. Guts in the Berserk armor, it's phenomenal. For character
Hmm.
journey, I got Musashi. What about you, Mast?
I mean, I basically stated it earlier,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
this is a completely subjective thing, but I'll always pick Guts, and like there this a lot of people are gonna get annoyed with me, especially the Vagabond fans. Um, but I do love Guts' journey. You talk about Golden Age, an arc where Guts has goes through so many developments, it's insane. And then in the conviction arc, we really get to see him question the path which he takes, right? And don't get me wrong, Musashi does a similar thing. You mentioned the farm arc, where I honestly think it's one of the greatest arcs in manga as well. But I truly love Guts' journey. And what makes this discussion difficult is neither characters really come to their conclusion, right? Like we have the ending for Vagabond with the one exhibition chapter that we got,
Yeah,
but we haven't seen the full resolution of it. And it's the same with Guts. So I'm gonna pick Guts, but I do want to make it very clear, as I will throughout this entire video. If you pick Musashi, you're not wrong. Okay, no one is right, no one's wrong here. It's cool.
it's subjective. Yeah, right. I got you on that one. I got Musashi for quite a lot of categories, but Guts is great. You really could argue for both of them. They're both 10 out of 10 protagonists and the best
Right,
the best that manga has to offer. But I honestly just have to go with
right.
Musashi. It might be recency bias, but I really just enjoyed his journey. Now, this
Hmm.
category, I'm not really sure if it's fair, but antagonists, moving on.
Yeah, this one in terms of antagonists, the way that it's all kind of set up, even though, don't get me wrong, like Vagabond has phenomenal antagonists. I just don't know if any of them reach the level of Griffith at all, but I think that's just the type of series it is. And real quick, because I think this is going to be important as the discussion continues on, but I think as it all does kind of come down to preference in certain areas, because we are talking about two super high quality series. I mean, in my eyes, this is like the best of the best when it comes to manga, right? Um, I do think it is a preference thing because you look at a series like Berserk, which is an exaggeration of humanity at its worst and at its best. It's a dark fantasy. Versus Vagabond is a much more realistic, grounded, philosophical journey. That's kind of the major difference within the two. Although that's not to say that Vagabond can't be exaggerated at certain points or Berserk can't be philosophical. You know, they both can, but primarily those are the tones of the series. But antagonist wise, I definitely think with Berserk's roster of not only just Griffith, but you have the rest of the God Hand that are still extremely mysterious. Zod, Rosine, Mozgus, Ganishka. Yeah, all of those, I'm gonna have to give it to Berserk.
Yeah, same. Griffith is my favorite antagonist in all of any manga. I definitely hold him in high regard. Well, I mean, in the Vagabond novel, not that I've read it, I guess in the final battle, from what I've researched about history, Kojiro versus Musashi, Kojiro may
Mm,
become a great antagonist later in the future, but I'm not too sure about that.
right.
Baiken was also really good. The Yoshioka, I don't know if they're side characters or antagonists, to be honest, but they were also really good. So yeah, this one,
Hmm.
I'd say Berserk takes it quite easily, not to take away from Vagabond, but Griffith is just something else. He has a top one
Right,
dynamic with guts, and just, I may hate him, okay? I hate him for what he did, but
right, right.
he's a great antagonist.
That means he's doing his job well. If as an antagonist, his actions make you so emotionally invested that you hate the character, then it's being done right for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Next category, the cast of characters.
Ooh, I think Berserk's cast is very top heavy. In the sense that Guts and Griffith for me, greatest duo in anime manga. You're not going to find a better protagonist antagonist duo than Guts and Griffith. You have Casca, a phenomenal female character. Farnese, who I would argue is an even better female character. Characters like Serpico, who have been a little stagnant. Characters like Puck and Isidro that serve more as comedic relief. And then a lot of the characters that would have been given more depth, like Judo, Pippin, maybe Gaston, Corcus, like they were all not really spoilers. But if you're watching this video, they just get wiped out, right? So
Yeah,
Berserk kind of restarts its cast. So you could make a really good case for Vagabond, and I actually might, because this is a re-record of the last one because we don't have the last
yeah.
recording. Technical difficulties. I think it's really close, but I think Vagabond's cast might go a little deeper than Berserk's.
Yeah. Well, for females, Vagabond isn't complete, so I can't really talk about this. But Otsu, I feel she should have had at least a bigger role. She should have had more. I can't say screen time. It's not anime, but more time, or
Mm-hmm.
she should have been fleshed out more. She's a pretty good female, but I wish she had a better quote unquote role. For the
Mm-hmm.
Yoshioka, you could say they're antagonists or side characters. It's Kojiro, yes, Kojiro. At the moment, he's
Mm-hmm.
a side character. He's my favorite side character of all time. So for cast,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with Vagabond. Most of the time, it's usually Musashi on his journey, and then we meet different characters as he goes. Like in the first arc, we meet
Right.
I forgot their names, the two females, and then there's also Takuan. Then obviously the Yoshioka, the Yagyu, Baiken and
Right.
Gurindo,
Right.
Kojiro,
Right.
and then the Kojiro arc just honestly takes the cast to another level because you get introduced to Ito Itosai, and then the rest of the characters in the
Right.
Battle of Sekigahara, and it really fleshes them out. So yeah, for cast of characters, I'm definitely gonna go with Vagabond. Even though they may
Right.
not be
Right.
there as much as Musashi, but they're really amazing in my opinion. The interactions are
Right.
amazing, they're fleshed out, and they add a lot to the story. So for this category, I've got Vagabond. Yeah, next category we got storytelling and thematic expression, the themes that are prevalent in the story. Which one do you have?
Um, Vagabond is beautiful in the way that it does this. It's a story. It's a retelling of an autobiography, right? It's a retelling of the person that is Musashi Miyamoto, and it's it's one that has such an amazing philosophical influence that it's hard not to take away from it. Again, we're talking like the best of the best here. So this hurts because it's like me pitting my two sons to fight, and I have to
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
which one I like more. But for me, Berserk's impressionist way of doing it and how extreme Berserk is, because you read Vagabond, right? And this might be different for everybody, but you read Vagabond and you're like, wow. You're like, oh my. It's soothing most times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you wonder at the beauty of it. Berserk's like, holy, what the, like it catches you with it. Like Berserk's very intense, and I love that about Berserk. That's what I've always appreciated about it. It's able to communicate a lot of philosophical themes that are beautiful, but it does it through a very extreme, exaggerated way. Again, dark fantasy, and it does this with the themes of existentialism, your ego, yourself, the dark side that we all share, the topic of God, and
Yeah.
all the different way people view God, moving on from trauma and dealing with it, love, pain, like all of it. Berserk and Vagabond tackle so much. But I just love how Berserk is so exaggerated with it at times. So my pick is going to be Berserk again.
For this, I'd probably say they're equal. I like how Vagabond handles the theme of unrivaled under heaven, what it is like to be like water, and other themes, which I'd have to discuss with a scripted video. And then Berserk's theme of the struggle of humanity, it's just amazing. In all honesty, it's amazing. It's peak storytelling. So for this, I'm definitely gonna have to say they're equal. They both tell their stories in the best way possible in manga, so I'm definitely gonna have to say they're equal. Moving on to the next category, we got the peaks of the story. This one's gonna be interesting. What do you have, Mast?
For me, there's no greater climax than the eclipse. There isn't. Um, you talk about one of the most important, brutal, devastating scenes ever, and for me, like the eclipse has it. So like you could look at Vagabond and be like has more peaks, maybe. Although Berserk has Guts getting the Berserker armor, Guts and Griffith meeting on the Hill of Swords, Guts versus Rosine, Guts versus Mozgus, Guts and Casca reuniting. Like there's so many peaks both series have. I mean, you could honestly argue in comparison to maybe all of the other stuff around it, with the exception of a couple other mangas, it's always at a peak. But in terms of climaxes, right? If we're talking from a literary sense, I give it a Berserk again still.
Well, for me, I had the eclipse spoiled on a number of times, so I knew what I was getting into. It was a great conclusion, but the thing is, I knew it didn't have that kind
Right.
of unexpected feel to it. Like, I never knew this was gonna happen type of feel. But it did happen in quite the great sense. Well, fortunately, I wasn't spoiled anything for Vagabond, so the Yoshioka Massacre, it is one of my favorite arcs. I have Golden Age as my second favorite arc after Eni's Lobby, but the Yoshioka Massacre,
Okay.
you can tell from the name that, alright, the Yoshioka are gonna get massacred, but the way that it was portrayed was something I would never expect, and honestly, that is, in my opinion, the peak of Vagabond, and it's something I hold in extremely high regard. You have the farming arc, of course. The farming arc was great for Musashi's developments and adding other characters like Shusaku, if I'm remembering his name correctly, but the Yoshioka Massacre is truly a great peak, and it takes Musashi's character to a whole nother level. It's kinda hard to discuss it without a scripted video and sitting back and thinking about it, but the Yoshioka Massacre to me is something very special. So for this category, I'm gonna go with Vagabond. Of course, Berserk has Golden Age, Guts and Griffith. Well, this is kinda a spoiler, but I'm sure since you're watching this video, you already know. Guts and Griffith fighting each other, the end of the Eclipse, the end of Fall of the Millennium Falcon, the end of Conviction. All of it was amazing,
Right.
but the Yoshioka Massacre for me is the absolute peak of storytelling in my opinion. So it goes to Vagabond.
Okay.
Alright, so now the final category, the arts in the manga. This one's pretty interesting.
Oh man. Oh, now like this was already so subjective before, but now it's like, man, my 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 favorite panels all time come from Berserk.
Yeah, same.
However, early Berserk, like Black Swordsman arc Berserk, early Golden Age, wasn't the best in terms of artwork. It wasn't bad. I mean, it's still really good, but it's not late Golden Age, Conviction, Millennium Falcon. Like Millennium Falcon artwork Berserk, if that was Berserk all the time, then sure. There's also that period of time where Miura has to readjust to the digital design. Vagabond from start to finish is just breathtaking. Like breathtaking. Like there's not one bad panel, right? So even though originally I would have said Berserk, I think I'm gonna give it to Inoue here, because if we were talking about slam dunk or Berserk, I'd give it a Berserk. But Vagabond Berserk, I'll give artwork to Vagabond.
Yeah, and this one, I'm actually gonna go with Berserk for this one. At first, in the first video we did, I went with Vagabond, but this one, I'm
And I went
definitely
with
gonna go
Berserk.
with
Yeah.
Berserk. So yeah,
Okay. All right.
I saw some panels of Berserk the other day, and it reminded me of just how amazing it is. Now, Vagabond, it looks real. It's like real life. It's very good and it's very detailed. But Berserk, it's obviously a dark fantasy, so some things are gonna come from Mira's imagination, but they just look something else. Like the the panel
All
of the
right.
dragon on the tower. I'm not sure if you remember it. That was pretty
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah. The dragon and all that, and then you also have Skull Knight popping up behind Femto and all that.
Yeah, and then
Um,
also the
and all of
shots
the other, yeah.
of Cliff Off when they're going to Cliff Off. That was also something else. My
Uh,
favorite panel of all
right.
time, the end of Golden Age, where Guts is just screaming Griffith, and then
Oh, you're right.
the I think where Guts says in his mind that was definitely an eclipse or something. That was a really great panel too. So
Yeah, that's a good one. I think my favorite is Guts when he's about to scream and it's like all black behind him, but then Casca's behind him, so it slowly fades into white. And for me, it's like one of the greatest. It's like a beautiful motion. Um, and so yeah, I could definitely see it. It's ironic though that I went with Vagabond this time and you
yeah,
went with Berserk.
yeah. So for me, Vagabond, it's based off an historical novel, so it looks very close to real life, and it looks amazing. But Berserk, it's just the dark fantasy art, and it's amazing with Mira's skill as an artist and his imagination. I just find it amazing. Probably the best
Mm,
that there is in all of manga, in my opinion, at least. So yeah, for art,
okay.
I'm definitely gonna go with Berserk. It is pretty close, but it's just the way Berserk. I don't know. I'm not too sure how to put this into
I
words, but
Yeah, it's difficult to express. So originally, when I was taking my Berserk stance, is because I think Miura has a lot more freedom to be a lot more creative, right? Like Vagabond's a lot more realistic, but Berserk is so creative. Dragons, the different apostles, what the Berserk armor looks like, the Skull Knight, like the designs and all that that works into it is a lot more creative, you could say, and all that. So that would just be my view on it.
yeah, one of my favorite panels too is when the apostles are basically transforming by the witch's forest. They're all in their forms. That was a really great drawing. So for this, I'm taking Berserk. Vagabond, it's really good, but I've just got to go with Berserk. Berserk has the best art in all of manga. So that, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much brings us to the end of the video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, like and comment, as it really does help me out. And the link to Matt's channel is in the description. He makes some great content, so go subscribe if you haven't already. And I really can't thank Matt enough for coming on the channel to discuss this
Anytime, yo.
anytime. So this is both of us signing off. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Peace.
Take care.